By day, she's a beacon of virtue, a pastor's daughter adored by the entire congregation. But when the sun sets, she becomes someone else entirely, a woman of forbidden desires, a slay queen with secrets that could shatter everything she holds dear. Grace lives a perfect life, or so it seems. In the light of day, she's the embodiment of purity, smiling, praying, and spreading kindness to everyone around her. But as the night falls, she enters a world of dark temptation, where the rules don't apply and the stakes are higher than she ever imagined. Tonight, something has changed. The man she's secretly been seeing, the one who promises her a life beyond the church walls, is ready to expose her. He knows everything. And he's not asking for money, he's asking for something much darker. As Grace faces the choice of her life, she's forced to confront not only the lies she's been hiding but the truth about herself. Or will she be forced to betray everything she's ever known, including her own faith, in order to survive? The next few hours will change everything. And when the truth comes to light, nothing will ever be the same again. The faint sound of children laughing in the distance brought her back to the present. They ran across the grass, oblivious to the storm inside her. Her hands paused on the banner she was adjusting, fingers trembling for just a second. Was it guilt or excitement that coursed through her veins? Perhaps both. It had become harder and harder to distinguish between the two. As she took a deep breath, she glanced at her phone resting in the back pocket of her purse. She knew she had a message. She could feel it. She had intentionally left the phone behind this morning, hoping the temptation to check it wouldn't rise. But it had. Her mind returned to the text from him, the one person who knew everything about her second life. He wasn't just a man, he was her key to a world she didn't want to leave. And yet, the weight of his expectations hung on her every move. The church bell rang, signaling the start of service. She quickly tucked her phone back into her bag. She didn't want anyone to notice the way her heart was beating faster now. She couldn't let anyone see how her mind had already started to drift away. Her world was slipping. The easy rhythm of her life, church by day, slay queen by night, was becoming harder to maintain. There was always the risk of exposure, always the nagging thought that the walls would fall down, and she would be forced to face the consequences. She walked toward the entrance of the church, trying to steady herself. The congregation filled the pews, and the familiar faces greeted her with warmth and admiration. She sat in her usual spot at the front, eyes focused on the pulpit. Her father's voice rang out as he preached about virtue and the importance of staying true to one's values. Grace's fingers clenched the pew in front of her as she listened, feeling her breath catch in her throat. How could she reconcile this version of herself with the person she had become at night? How could she explain the choices she was making to the very people who looked up to her as a symbol of purity? It felt like a mask she wore, one that was growing more uncomfortable with every passing day. She tried to focus on the sermon, but her mind kept drifting. What would happen if her worlds collided? Would they understand? Or would they condemn her? The moment passed, and service continued. Grace was a model of piety, her hands folded, her eyes downcast. On the outside, she was everything they expected her to be. But deep inside, she could hear the voice of temptation calling. She could feel the pull of the night, the life she had built in secret, waiting for her to slip away from this reality and into one where she didn't have to be anyone else. The last hymn echoed through the church, but Grace couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of something that would change everything. She knew that tonight, she would face the choice again, to go back to the thrill, the rush, and the power of the slay queen, or to continue playing the role of the dutiful daughter, the one everyone trusted. She wasn't sure how much longer she could keep this up. The tension inside her was growing unbearable. A storm was coming, and it was only a matter of time before she would have to choose. As the days passed, Grace's world began to feel even more divided. The church, with its soft hymns and bright candles, had always been her anchor, the place where she found comfort in her carefully constructed image. But the nights, the nights were another story. The lights, the music, the laughter, the whispers, all of it felt so intoxicating, so powerful. She was always in control in that world, a goddess of the night, commanding attention without a single word. But with each passing day, the weight of her secret became heavier. That evening, after another peaceful church service, Grace found herself walking toward the same old meeting place, the underground club that had become her second home. The neon lights flickered as she approached, the bass from the music vibrating through the ground beneath her feet. She hesitated for a moment, her heart racing, but then she reminded herself of the allure, the excitement. This was her escape. This was where she could be herself, free, untouchable, and powerful. Inside, the lights were dim, casting shadows on the faces of the people who filled the room. Grace slipped through the crowd, a confident smile on her lips as she made her way to the VIP section, where she knew he would be waiting. Thomas. He was more than just a client. He was a man who held her power over his head, who knew her secrets and used them to keep her coming back. He knew about the church girl, the virtuous daughter, the one everyone adored. But he also knew the other side of her, the one that wore glittering dresses, her makeup flawless, her every movement designed to captivate. Tonight, he was in a particularly good mood, his sharp eyes scanning the room as he sipped his drink. Grace felt the familiar thrill wash over her as she approached, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. She was his favorite, the one he couldn't get enough of. She was different from the others. He always said that. And she could never decide whether that compliment thrilled her or made her feel sick. They exchanged pleasantries, a touch too familiar, a few smiles that were far more dangerous than they appeared. But as the night wore on, Grace felt herself slipping deeper into the role she had created. The woman who no one knew, the woman who felt free and alive in ways she couldn't express during the day. This life, this world, made her feel in control. And for once, she didn't feel like the girl tied down by expectations and roles that didn't fit her. But even as the music blared and the champagne flowed, something was different tonight. Grace couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The pull of her double life was stronger than ever. She was beginning to feel trapped, like a bird that had flown too far from the nest and couldn't find its way back. Her phone buzzed in her purse, a message from an unknown number. For a second, she thought about ignoring it, but the anxiety gnawed at her. She pulled it out quickly, her eyes scanning the message before her heart skipped a beat. It was from him. The one man who had always kept her on edge, always made her feel both safe and terrified at the same time. The message was simple, but it hit her like a cold wave. Meet me at midnight. I need to talk. Her stomach tightened. This was it. The day she had feared, the day she had known would come. The secret she had carefully cultivated for months, maybe even years, was starting to unravel. The perfect life she had built by day was about to crash into the dangerous life she led at night. Grace's hands trembled as she read the message again, her mind racing. What did he want? What was he going to do with the information he had? For a moment, she considered ignoring it, just walking away from everything. But she knew she couldn't. The pull of the night, of the power, of the escape, it was too strong. She would go. She had to. As the night wore on, the club became a blur of flashing lights and distant voices. Grace moved through it like a ghost, her thoughts consumed by the message. What was waiting for her at midnight? And what would happen if she didn't show up? She didn't know, but she felt the weight of it pressing on her chest, suffocating her. By the time the clock struck midnight, Grace found herself standing at the door of a dimly lit hotel room, her heart pounding in her chest. The door creaked open, and there he was. Thomas. He didn't look surprised to see her. In fact, he looked almost smug, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. You came, he said, his voice low and smooth. I knew you would. Grace stepped inside, her mind reeling. She couldn't bring herself to say anything, to ask the questions that were racing through her head. Instead, she just stood there, waiting for him to make the first move. "I've been thinking," Thomas continued, taking a step closer to her, his eyes never leaving hers. "About what you really want, about what we can be, if you just trust me fully." Grace swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. She didn't know if she could trust him, or if she wanted to. But the temptation, the power, it all felt so real. She wasn't just a girl anymore, she was someone who could make things happen, who could control her destiny. But at what cost? She had been living this life for so long, hiding in plain sight, and now, she was standing on the precipice of something she couldn't fully grasp. The lines between her two lives were blurring, and she couldn't tell which one she truly wanted anymore. The truth, she knew, was waiting for her. But it would take everything she had to face it. The air in the hotel room felt thick, suffocating. Grace could feel her heart pounding in her chest, echoing like a drumbeat in the quiet space. She had always kept her two worlds separate, but now, standing in front of him, she realized just how fragile that balance had been. She had been living in fear of this moment for so long, and now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to do. Thomas took a slow step toward her, his voice soft, almost coaxing. "You're mine, Grace," Thomas said, stepping even closer. "I've known about your double life from the start. Everything you've been hiding. And now, it's time to choose. Are you ready to let me in, fully?" She stood frozen, her thoughts spinning out of control. The man she had been seeing was offering her everything, power, freedom, wealth. But at what cost? The choices that had seemed exciting just days ago now seemed like a cage, trapping her in a life she wasn't sure she could escape from. She had thought that the nightlife, the Slay Queen persona, was the answer. But now, in this room with Thomas, it didn't feel like an answer at all. It felt like a prison. A gilded cage. As the minutes passed, Grace's mind flashed back to her family, to her father's sermons, to the quiet life she had once dreamed of. Was it all just a dream now? Had she become so entangled in the lies that she could no longer see the truth? The truth was a bitter pill to swallow. She had built her life on secrets, on deception. But the guilt, the shame, the lies, how much longer could she carry them? "I can't keep living this way," Grace finally whispered, her voice barely audible, her hands shaking. She wasn't talking to Thomas anymore. She was talking to herself, to the girl who had wanted to be perfect, to be everything everyone expected her to be. Thomas smirked, as if he had been expecting this. "You can try to run from me, Grace, but I have everything you've ever wanted. And I know everything about you. You think you can escape me? You're wrong." Grace stepped back, her heart racing, her mind frantic. Was it true? Was she trapped forever in this web of lies, of power and control? Would she ever be free? But then, a sudden clarity washed over her. She had been living for others, living in fear of judgment, afraid of exposing the truth. But now, for the first time, she realized something. She didn't have to be this person anymore. She didn't have to be the church girl or the Slay Queen. She could be Grace. Just Grace. "I'm done," she whispered, her voice steady now. "Done pretending. Done with the lies." With that, she turned and walked out of the hotel room, leaving Thomas and his dangerous promises behind. Her decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The road ahead would be difficult, but Grace finally understood that the only way forward was to be true to herself. She didn't need to live for anyone's expectations but her own. As Grace walked away, the weight of the past lifted from her shoulders. The world around her seemed brighter, clearer. The noise of the city faded into the background, and all that remained was her, free, unburdened, and ready to face whatever came next. Grace had come to realize that living a double life, hiding one part of herself while embracing another, had only led her further from who she truly was. But with that realization came a deep lesson: true freedom lies in being authentic. Whether it's the pressure of expectations or the thrill of a forbidden life, nothing compares to the peace that comes with embracing your true self, without fear or shame. Sometimes, we all find ourselves torn between two worlds, trying to live up to someone else's standards, or hiding parts of ourselves we're afraid to show. But as Grace's story shows, the truth, no matter how painful, is always the key to freedom. It's never too late to make a change, to walk away from what's holding you back, and to step into the life you were meant to lead. As we follow Grace's journey, we are left with a powerful question: how many of us are living in a mask, hiding from our true selves? What would it take for you to finally let go of the lies and embrace the truth? If you found Grace's story inspiring, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more twists, turns, and unexpected lessons in twist tales. Stay tuned for the next story. It's going to shock you even more.